Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Miss Liz is back, and that's right, it is 9 p.m. So we have a special time, and we have an incredible guest who has been on Tea Time 5 times. This is his 5th time. So we got to know a little bit about all of his books, and tonight we're going to be talking about Aisha's Secret. It's a Latin style fantasy retelling story on how life gets complicated when you fall in love. Like, it's going to get really juicy tonight with our tea time tonight. And we're going to be talking about tenacity, evolution, and enchantment. That is what we're going to be talking about. That is Zachary's tea. But before we get started, we're going to get you guys over to all those platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Clapper, Lemonade, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, all those good platforms. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out there, because they do make a difference for the guests and for listeners out there that resonate with the stories. Also jump over to the podcast apps: Podbean, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, Spotify, and all the ones I haven't mentioned. Miss Liz is on those ones too. Check those out as well. And then also jump over to babyboomers.org. Miss Liz has been partnered with them for about 3 years now. And if you're looking to be featured on different podcasts, you can check out, they have over 50 different podcasts on that platform as well. If you're looking for something that Miss Liz doesn't offer, I have a bunch of friends all in the background of baby boomers that will take care of you over there. So let's get started with disclaimer, and then a beautiful intro. And then we're going to get Zachary in here. We're going to spill some tea and have some fun tonight. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or visit Miss Liz's link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, and view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome back to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where returning guests become part of our growing family of storytellers, changemakers, and voices that continue to inspire our community. Today, we are delighted to welcome back a familiar face for his 5th appearance at the Tea Time table. Fantasy author, editor, and master storyteller Zachary Hagen. Zachary is known for creating immersive worlds filled with adventure, heart, intrigue, magic, and meaningful life lessons through storytelling. This time, Zachary joins us to discuss his newest release, Aisha's Secret, a creative retelling inspired by the classic tale of Aladdin. In this fresh twist, Aisha, I hope I'm saying it right, is the thief, Aladdin is the prince, and one magical wish changes everything as identities, truth, love, and destiny collides. Through his writing, Zachary continues to remind readers that the greatest adventures are often found within ourselves, as well as navigate choices, challenges, courage, and personal growth. Today's tea time will explore the inspirational behind Anisha's secret, reimagining classic fairy tales, identity, truth, and transformation, fantasy as a reflection of real life, and the power of storytelling to inspire hope. As a returning guest and friend of Tea Time, Zachary continues to bring imagination, heart, and meaningful conversations to our table. So grab your cup and join us for another magical journey filled with stories, adventure, and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. Let me get Zachary in here and spill some tea. Welcome, Zachary.
Hi, it's so good to be back on again.
You are like one of the top guests who have come back. I think as Lukeman is in the lead of 7 appearances on Tea Time.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you're not far behind. You've been on here 5 times. So I've got to know your series a little bit. The Eternity series. We got to go through all of those books. Tonight we're doing Anisha's Secret. Aisha.
Yeah, you said it right a couple times, but
a couple of times, and then I glitched it, right? I overthink everything. Well, Zachary, tell my first-time listeners who haven't heard any of your previous tea times a little bit about who you were as a little guy and who you are now.
Yeah, so I grew up with an absolute love of reading and story, and that evolved very quickly into a love of writing. I've talked about it before on here, how I have little packets of stapled together paper that were my first books. And I just continued to attempt to write a book until one time I found a way that worked for me. And now I have 6 published novels, and I'm working on my 7th, which will be another fairy tale retelling. Subsequently, also working on my 8th and planning my 9th as well. So a lot of projects in the fire for me. But yeah, I'm excited about the fairy tale retellings, and I have sort of a big epic series planned for once I kind of take a little bit of a breather from writing direct series.
So Zachary, is that part of the Eternity collection, or is that a whole new collection?
It will be entirely new. So it's going to be set in an entirely different world. It'll be more in line with the scale of Tolkien and Christopher Paolini in terms of the world and the scope of things. And it'll be more, not necessarily graphic or spicy, as someone might say, but definitely more of an adult-aimed fantasy. Specifically, there's lots of conversation around concepts like toxic masculinity and femininity in today's day and age, and I wanted to explore the concept of healthy and biblical masculinity through a fantasy lens, because I think a lot of times we can learn a lot better through the lens of story, because it feels a lot less confrontational and less lectury.
Well, I find in the fantasy world that more truth is spoken than in the real world.
Sometimes, for sure, yes.
Well, let's get into Aisha's Secret, and tell me how you got the title and all that. And I'm just going to pull up the book, so if you just want to tell the audio listeners what we're looking at on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aisha's Secret, I had a lot of fun designing the cover. This is the first cover that I actually designed myself, and I've got a silhouette of an Arabian palace in the back with silhouettes of Aisha and Aladdin overlaid, and it's sort of positioned on top of sort of a red leather effect with gold detailing, and so it was fun to put together. The title, of course, is built off of Aisha being the main character, and she's got a secret to hide. She makes one wish after finding a djinn trapped in a bottle, and that one wish completely changes her life, and she is thrust into the role of princess, sort of stealing Prince Aladdin's spot, and she has to pretend that that's her real life, or the magic ends and she's without a home and without any place to go.
So when we spoke the last time, I believe last year, we were talking a little bit about this book coming out and that you were finishing up and we're getting ready to release it. So how long has it been out for, Zachary?
It was out in February of this year. It took me a little while to get to actually promoting or doing anything with it because I had a hand surgery that removed a cyst that my doctors were worried might have been cancer. Thank goodness it wasn't. So I took a bit of a break from all of the writing and book stuff because I had to focus on my health and finishing out my school year. So it was a very eventful first part of the year for me.
So you said you created this cover. So where did the red leather come in? Like, is that part of the love story, part of the complication? Why that color?
I think I was really going for something that kind of symbolized heat, both because of the romance and because it's set in a desert country. And so I wanted warmth to just exude from the moment someone picked up the book.
I like the color because it's almost like not a blood red, but it's a nice romancy red, like you said. Like, like those satin sheets that you would find
Yeah.
in castles and that as well. I found that it was life becomes complicated for Anisha in the story. And why is that? Why does life become complicated for her?
It largely becomes complicated because she's trying to balance this huge lie with the villain's desires, and her burgeoning romance with Aladdin, which she wasn't expecting, having known him as a child when her mother worked for the late Sultana. And she has to figure out how to navigate that as a princess while figuring out whether it's the right thing to tell the truth, even though that means completely ruining her life.
So, Zachary, this love romance, is it a secret romance? Is that where the secret comes in?
Well, the secret is because she's trying to hide that she isn't really a princess, because the moment someone even figures that out even a little bit, all of the jinn's magic comes crashing down and everything gets reset back to normal. So she has to keep that secret. But the romance, there's a little bit of a secret element, I think, with the romance, because it's not necessarily public because she's a princess and the world believes she's a princess and there are rules around who a princess can and can't marry. And there's this whole thing where she wants Aladdin but is constrained to the path that her father wants for her father, and the conniving schemes of Rafa, the main villain.
So, Zachary, is there going to be a sequel to this book? Is there going to be a part 2 or?
The fantasy retelling, the fairy tale retelling that I'm working on will be loosely connected to it, but it won't be like Eternal Chronicles where someone will have to read one book and then the other. This one will be more loosely connected, and it'll be something that I do as kind of a palate cleanser in between larger projects. So I'm doing another fairy tale retelling that'll come out next year, and then I'll be working in earnest on my bigger series, and then once that's done, I'll probably come back to some fairy tale retellings.
Well, we got some questions that are coming in, Zachary, so I'd like to get them out to you. The first one that came in is, what first inspired your love for fantasy storytelling?
I would say probably my enjoyment of reading it. The first series that I ever finished was C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. And, I was a kid. I was in like second, third, fourth grade when I read them, something like that. And they were just so inspiring. The world felt so fleshed out and real. And the themes were eternal and really resonated with me as a kid. So that sort of sparked my desire to read more and more fantasy. And I always knew that if I was going to finish a book, it was probably going to end up being a fantasy book because it was what I loved to read. Some authors will say that they can't read in their genre, but for me, it feels immersive, and I feel like you kind of remove barriers to understanding when you put it in a world that's not our own.
So, Zachary, what kind of fantasy land would be the perfect land for you?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I feel like I kind of, in a way, created it with Eternal Chronicles. It's got a load of different kinds of places to look at. There's beaches and mountains and grasslands and forests and rainforests and jungles. And so there's just so much going on. And I love to travel. And I think that's why I had my characters kind of traipsing all over the place in that series. I love variety. It's one reason why I'm actually moving out to California this summer. And so I'm really excited to live there because there is so much variety. There's mountains. It's really rainy in the northern parts. There's beaches. There's deserts. So I'm really excited about getting to kind of live in a place that's similar to the world that I created.
So, Zachary, you're moving again?
Hopefully this one will be the last one for at least a decade. This one was not planned. I planned to stay in Florida, and then the school that I was teaching at for the past couple of years, my principal was retiring, and I didn't feel like I was the right fit for that position, so I didn't apply for it, and I asked for a transfer within my school system, and we looked and we looked. My superintendents tried to help me find a spot in our system here, and I applied to so many different positions, and none of them opened up. But a school out in California wants me to be their principal, and I accepted that position. So I'm actually stepping out of the classroom this next year to be a principal.
Because I believe on 3 of the episodes you were moving each time. There was one where you had just moved, the boxes were there. The next time you were just settling in, I think the second time. And the third time you were like, this is the last move. That's it, Liz. Like, I'm just like, okay.
Oh, I wanted so bad for the one here in Florida to be the last one for a while, especially because we're leaving family behind here. So this one is especially hard, but you know, my time at the school was over, and I tried to stay within the district, but it's not a public system, it's a church-based system, so it's a smaller pool of schools because everyone's trying to move to Florida. It was a massive pool of teachers, which is sort of the opposite from a lot of places in the country. I think for one of the positions I applied for, the superintendent told me that they had like 35 applicants just for that one position. Wow. So it was just kind of pushed out. Had I stayed in my role or applied for the principal position at my school, I probably could have stayed, but it was a teaching principal role. So it was 3 grades plus all the principal duties. And I'm like, I'm a new dad. I can't do that and dedicate time to my son and to writing, and I'm still working on my PhD, so that just wasn't going to work for me.
You know, Zachary, if you come on when you write your next book and you say you're moving again, I'm going to say Zachary's just a mover. He's just a traveling man. I would
love to end the nomadic lifestyle. I would love to end the nomadic lifestyle. I really would. I'm so done with it.
You should put some of these moves into your books, into your fantasy lands.
I should have a race of nomads based off of me and my family in one of the books that I'm working on. That would be, I'll do that. Watch for it. When the first book in that series comes out, there will be nomads in the books, and I'll have some sort of an anagram of my family's names in it so that it just becomes part of the legacy in the fiction.
Well, we have another question that came in for you, and it's how did your childhood books shape your creative imagination?
Like the ones that I kind of stapled together and wrote, or the ones that I read as a kid?
I think
I'll
as
answer
the
for
ones
both.
yeah, give me one, a little bit for each one.
Yeah, I'll answer for both. So I would say that the ones that I kind of stapled together and wrote as a kid shaped my imagination because I can definitely locate like different species and character kind of traits that came back in the series. So I think that there were always ideas that were going to make it into a book no matter what. Kind of goes to my tenacity. Like if I want something, it's probably going to happen unless I just can't control any aspect of that. Like not moving. um, gotta go
When
over
we
the.
set up the next tea time, I'm going to ask you, are you moving?
Oh goodness, I really, really hope not. And I think for the books that I read, I would say that particularly one of my aunts is also a teacher and she teaches English. And she was, in my mind, the cool aunt because she always got me these massive books or books that my parents wouldn't normally buy for me. And so she bought me the first two or three of the Inheritance cycle as they were coming out. And it was just such an eye opener for me reading through that series for the first time. Not necessarily because I felt like I resonated with the author so much, but because there was such scale and grandeur to how things were done, and there was enough finesse in how he wrote the character that you really were able to kind of imprint and walk alongside Aragon as he went through his adventures in those books. And I think that just the scale of that combined with the love of the themes and the realism in C.S. Lewis's work really kind of sparked a lot of those early thoughts on what I wanted to eventually write. I think that really it settled into what became Eternal Chronicles when I decided that there is really sense in the advice, write what you know, and I made it something that was deeply personal, and that helped to push finishing it. And now I feel like I can write anything because I have the system and I've done it 6 times. So now I feel like I could write any book I wanted to because I know how. But that first one is the hardest.
Well, it's always hard, right, to get it right out there. Like you write it, and then you're just like, do I push the button? Do I publish this? Do I get it out there? And when you put the first book out there, Zachary, I think we talked about this on previous tea time, but how did it feel like to know that that book was out there, that there was no turning back?
Oh, goodness. I remember texting my family the link when it was finally live on Amazon and saying something along the lines of, this feels like a bigger accomplishment than my bachelor's degree did.
Wow.
And it didn't take as long, but with a college degree, you show up for class and you do the work, and at the end they give you a piece of paper with your name on it that says that you accomplished the thing. But with writing a book, no one is making you show up. No one's making you sit down at the computer and write. And unless you have a book deal, there are no deadlines. And realistically, no one has a book deal for their first book. You have to write it, and then if you're going to go the traditional publishing route, you have to find an agent and then find a publisher. I went the traditional route mostly because I wanted to keep more of the control. I didn't want to have to change anything. in some ways it's the harder option. In some ways it kind of is the only option at this point, because they make all authors do the same kind of publicity and advertising on their own without help, unless they're really, really well read and successful. Um, and so it's, in some ways it's less hoops to jump through to do self-publishing, but it also means that you have to prove yourself just a little bit more. And so that part was daunting, but I think that just the sheer force of will that it took to finish that first book, and then to know that it was going to be a series, so I immediately launched into writing the second, was just, I still enjoy writing, and I still love when I have a new release out, but nothing captures that first high of being able to say, I'm a published author. People can go online and order a copy of a book with several hundred pages of words that I wrote.
Right? It's really hard to explain if you're not a writer, right? I know when I pushed it and that was it, it was published. I was like, oh, there's no turning back now. But you have this feeling of showing up for yourself as well, right? Because no one's pushing you, like you said, to show up and do the classes and do the test, and that it's you that's got to show up for yourself, and you got to take all that feedback, and you got to say, oh, okay. Once that book was published, the first one, the second one, was there ease, or was there still that anxiety when you went to go publish it? Or
I don't think so. Not as much, especially because with the first book, there were several people that did become readers that were really excited about the second book. And some of my most avid fans are still relatively close. They're friends and family, which is totally fine. The ones that continue to read that I don't know are just as important, but I get the most feedback from my family and friends. And so I had a little bit more of that excitement for the second release, and people asking me when it was going to be out and when it was finished, and can I get an advance copy? So a lot of that anxiety over it was lessened because I knew people were excited to see it rather than will they like it kind of thing. And I'd say my confidence has only grown since then because I continue to get really positive reviews, which is great. Not every review is positive, but there's a lot more positive than negative, which is great.
Zachary, you mentioned you had a cool aunt writer. Did you guys write anything together?
No, she teaches English.
Oh,
I don't know that she's actually written anything other than her dissertation, but yeah, does she have she has a doctorate. I'm not sure if it was a PhD or one of the practical doctorates, but cool English teacher aunt. She's worked as a librarian as well, so she's really bookish, and I've always really enjoyed spending time with her.
Zachary, if you could write your next fantasy book with anyone in the world, who would you write it with?
Oh, goodness. Actually, if I could write it with anyone, I think I'd write it with my mother.
Oh.
She's been one of the most avid supporters of the journey, and she's read all of my work and given such really great feedback. And she's actually currently working on a book of her own, not a fantasy novel, but a book of devotionals. And I would love to write something that had some of her heart in it. I've asked her to write the foreword for another book that I'm writing, because I'm actually also writing a book of devotionals, but reflections on being a father and how that relates to my relationship with God. So that one has been interesting to work on. But yeah, I would say if I was going to write it with anyone, it would be my mom.
So, Zachary, have you ever thought of putting these devotions into your fantasy?
I would say no. To me, they're just so, I mean, they're related to in my mind, but they're, a devotional book is a lot more preachy, and if you're looking for that, you're looking for that. If you're picking up a fantasy novel, you're not necessarily wanting that. And so I really want the truths to be there without putting some people off, because not everyone's a Christian, but some truths are still truth, and I want those things to be accessible even if someone's not looking for Jesus in my pages.
Zachary, why do you feel fantasy worlds connect so deeply with readers?
I mean, for me, I think it's because a lot of us have maybe not a conscious sense, but a gut sense that there's a lot more to our world than meets the eye. Because I am so spiritual, I mean, people will say, oh, I don't believe in the supernatural. I do. I believe very deeply in the supernatural. So much so that I think that the world we live in is the supernatural one, and there's no such thing as the natural world. It's all interconnected, it's all part of the same thing, and you don't have one without the other.
So, when did you get the deep faith in believing in supernatural, Zachary? Was it a young age or as your writing journey began?
I would say a combination of the two. I always had because I was raised in church, there was always a sort of latent spirituality there. Um, but especially through my writing journey, and delving deeper into those topics, and sort of in concert with all of the moves I've done, it's been a lot of, because all of those have been so guided by forces outside of myself, um, that it's very difficult to not believe in a providential hand guiding it. And of course, I'm a Christian, so I believe that God is guiding those things. And believe me, I have often wondered why things are happening, and I know that I feel called to the career that I'm in education, and just the story of finding a job this year is so wild. No one could make it up, and it does not bear the mark of human planning, but divine intervention all the way. And so my life is so complex, but also really unified around central themes where I let God lead and I listen. And those themes can really be found very strongly in Eternal Chronicles, especially because that was where most of our moves happened, was while writing that. And I mean, the first book was really influenced by a season of intense grief, and there's spiritual comfort flying off the pages, because the characters are all going through grief, because that was what I was going through. And so some of the words that Michael says to Opal, Nyx, and Dahlia in that first book, I don't feel like are my words. I feel like that they came from God and were for me, and now they get to bless other people in the context of that story.
I remember our first tea time, and we talked about the grief. You had lost a family member, I believe, at that time,
Friend.
right?
Yeah.
A friend. And we talked about how the words came to the page, and sometimes you're just like, "Whoa, where did this come from?"
Mm-hmm.
And you move so much, and you believe in God, and you have that strong faith, right? And it is almost like He's directing you. Okay, your journey over here is done. Now I'm going to try and get you to travel here and travel there, and because you traveled, I believe it was Michigan or Mississauga,
Mississippi. We were in Mississippi for a
Mississippi.
couple of years before I moved to Florida. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about the mirror of the inner self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that eternity mirror. If you want to share just a little bit about the other books that you have for the listeners out there, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Eternal Chronicles is a 5-book arc. It starts with Eternity's Well, which was a really fantastic write, and it's in my opinion, an even better read than it was to write. That goes directly into Eternity's Mirror, that expands on those themes and takes the main character's journey deeper as they learn more about the ancient evil that they are battling against. That goes into Eternity's Refuge, where they join and help to lead a secret society devoted to faith in that world's deity, the Great Spirit, or Elon. And Eternity's Edge is the sort of the setup for the final chapter, Eternity's End, where they have their final show or final standoff and achieve their ending, the one that was promised. So I love a story with a happy ending. I'm not going to say how the ending's happy, but I think it was well deserved.
So when we talked about taking characters off, some of the characters you were like, "Oh no, not yet." So tell us a little bit about the characters in this series.
Yeah, so everything centers around Elior, and Elior, I think, has one of the biggest kind of inner glow ups of almost any character I can think of in fiction. I actually taught Eternity's Well my second year teaching to my students. I got permission. It was a really fun experience to do that. But I had several students say, I really don't like reading this because the character is whiny and he's always crying. And I'm like, it's a fair critique. But by the end of the series, Elior is an entirely different person. And I think that really does mirror the experience that I've had over the last 5-6 years. Because I was not as solid or put together a person when I was 24 as I am now.
Well, we said this before we went live, right? Time waits for no one. We all age and life goes on. Zachary, how do teaching and writing influence one another in your life?
Actually, I finished the first book largely because I had a student tell me that they never planned on reading the Chronicles of Narnia because they were too old. And that felt so offensive to me that I was like, well, you need something that's going to scratch that particular itch. And so I finished my books hoping to be kind of a spiritual successor to the themes and ideas that C.S. Lewis pushed forward in his books, because it just felt so important that remains something that was accessible.
And Zachary, you mentioned species when you were a child. So what kind of species did you write about when you were a child?
Oh, there were dragons and dwarves and the kind of like classic fantasy stuff. I don't think I really invented anything really unique for the Eternal Chronicles, except for what I called the Unders, which were little shadow creatures made out of the soot left behind when Elon created dragons. Because everything in that world had like one side of the world had one species and the other had a counterpart in the other that was made out of the leftovers when Elon was done creating one species. Like the leftovers from fire from creating dragons created the Unders, and the leftover wind from creating the fairies became wind spirits, and so on and so forth. So everything kind of had an equal and opposite on the other side of the world.
Why do you feel that the fantasy writers are drawn to dragons and fairies?
think largely because they feature so prominently in the collective human psyche in the West. Dragons are described pretty heavily in, well, not described, but alluded to pretty heavily in the Bible. And fairies and angels are sort of not necessarily the fae version of fairies, but like the benevolent ones with wings and that grant wishes are sort of akin to angels. If the concept of angels was run through a telephone game 2 or 3 times. So I think those kind of stick out so prominently in Western thought because even people who aren't Christian, unless you've read the Bible cover to cover and not to find something to dislike about it, but just as a literary exercise, you really don't understand how deeply affected all of Western thought is by biblical worldviews and thoughts. It's wild how much is influenced by it.
Do you feel like the Bible itself has the fantasy worlds in it?
I wouldn't say fantasy worlds necessarily. There are a couple stories in the Bible that are fictional. Jesus's parables come to mind because some people take them literally. They were clearly meant as short stories to illustrate a point. But because I believe that it's real, I think that all fantasy stories, at least the ones in the West, are based on the real supernatural world rather than that actually being fantasy. Because I've experienced spirituality in a very real way, so I can't in any way call it a fantasy because it's bigger than what I can imagine.
I always wondered about the Bible as a storytelling, right? To get us to understand life. And it's almost kind of like what you said with the supernatural. I feel like we're in the supernatural world. It's all connected and we're just overlooking it, right? Like the universe is part of our lives. It's directing us and bringing us forward in a spiritual way. But we're looking so hard at the stars and the skies that we're not looking at the grounds and the waters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick Riordan and his series of books based on Greek mythology. He has actually 2 or 3 series interconnected. With that, the first of them being Percy Jackson and the Olympians. They live in a world where gods and monsters and demigods and stuff like that are all right in front of the main characters, but the regular world can't see it through the mist, which is this magical veil separating the mortal from the rest of the world that knows what's going on. And I kind of feel like it's sort of the same thing. If you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't see it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's right in front of our face and we don't see it, right? Because we're looking too into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like we're looking for an answer, but the answer is so simple. It's right there. But we're like looking for A, B, C, D, E instead of just looking for A.
Yeah, a lot of people have a very naturalistic view where we're animals evolved over millions of years and there's biological processes and everything else is just sort of an illusion. I come at it from a different angle, of course, with my viewpoint because we're emotional, spiritual, and biological beings. So you have to know things on multiple levels. And sometimes knowing something is getting the evidence that's available and allowing intuition to carry you the rest of the way.
So, Zachary, when you're writing your fantasy stories, do you do like a lot of research or do you read a lot of other fantasy books to get kind of like an insight into what direction to go with your books?
It depends. I would say that I do a lot of research in terms of making sure that the story makes sense for what I'm trying to do. Like I did a lot of research on cultural things because I was blending different Arabic cultures and sort of modern life as I built out Aisha. But generally speaking, I try not to research too heavily because then I'll end up researching trends and doing what's popular. And I think that books that try to be popular don't really end up selling very well in the long run. And I'm still working on building up a following. And if I was worried about chasing trends, if I was doing that with my first book, well, the first one released in 2021. We're 5 years past that. Trends move at the speed of light these days. If I was worried about trends and what was going on in popular published fantasy, my book would already be outdated because people are already starting to abandon the works of Sarah J. Maas and things like that. At least the ones that are, Court of Thorns and Roses, that was really popular. No one talks about it anymore. But people still talk about The Lord of the Rings. J.R.R.
Yeah.
Tolkien wasn't trying to follow any trends.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? So in today's society, a lot of people are doing the trends or the viral, right? They want that big sale or that big one-time deal, and then they're forgotten 5 years later, like you said, like in 2021, the trend's already gone, right? You got to keep looking up for those new trends. Um, I like the flow of your books, and I like the color of your books because you had unique colors for each book as well, and you had a meaning behind the colors. Just like this one, Aisha's Secret, you have the color of that red, that maroon color. It's kind of like the Arabic kind of Roman style castle feel. How did you get the name for that book?
For Aisha's Secret,
Yeah.
so it came from the secret that Aisha had to keep. It was probably one of my more literal titles.
So how did you get that name? Because that name is unique.
Oh, Aisha. It couldn't be Jasmine, and so I was looking for something that had.
That was a trend. That was a trend.
Yeah. Well, because of course everyone would recognize Jasmine Aladdin from the Disney story, because that's how most people have interacted with Aladdin as a story. Very few people have actually read the original from Scheherazad's 1001 Arabian Nights. If you haven't, I would recommend reading it. It's a really interesting. It's completely and utterly different from the Disney version, and of course completely different from mine. It's loosely based on Aladdin, but I would say it's more based on the Disney version than the 1001 Nights version, but it has some of the same story beats. So anyway. It couldn't be Jasmine because then I would get a copyright strike.
And you don't want that.
No. But I needed something that was culturally appropriate to the cultures that I was trying to blend together in the book, and was pretty and feminine and felt natural for that world. And so I chose Aisha from a list of names because it sounded pretty and feminine and vaguely magical, and it fit. It was my favorite from a list of names, so in much the same way that we named our son.
Yeah, because there was a story behind that as well. The name of your son.
Yeah, we were looking for names that worked well with my grandfather's name and my wife's grandfather's name, because it's tradition in our family for the firstborn son to get two middle names. So Henry and Douglas, and we need to find a name that went with those names. So that's how we landed on his name.
Well, Zachary, I'm going to pull your book up again because I want to ask you a question about the cover. Why are the silhouettes one larger than the other?
So it's graduated distance. So Aisha, the book is written in first person, so it's written from Aisha's perspective, and so she's the closest to the reader because she's the one that's telling the story. And Aladdin is further into the picture because she's trying to get to him, but he's a little out of reach.
So another question about this book: who has the power? Is it her or is it him?
I would say that that's a really good question. I hadn't even thought about it in those terms. Because she's a princess for the majority of the book, I think she has this illusion of power, but because it's not real, just like her status as a princess, I think ultimately her power lies in. It's hard to answer that without spoiling the end of the book.
I always do this, guys. All my listeners are like, Miss Liz, you always try to get an Easter egg out of all of these books. And
I think that's a fantastic question. I would say that strength is deceptive in this one, and that there's a bigger answer to that, but you would have to read it to
right?
find out.
Well, that's what we want. We want them
Yeah.
to go out and grab this copy and to grab this book. Where can they find this book, Zachary?
Right now, it is available on Amazon. If you go to my author page, you'll see all my books, and that one will be the newest one. I'm working on potentially getting it into wider distribution, but right now, everything is available on Amazon.
So, and the other books are all on Amazon as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, with this book, what do you want the readers to get from it?
I want them to get a sense of what love is beyond what they want out of it. You know, I think that in a lot of ways, modern dating and modern marriage is about finding happiness, but it's not supposed to be about that. We often think of love as an emotion, but it's a series of choices and commitments. And, you know, our grandparents were all married for 50 plus years, and they weren't married for 50 plus years because they had the same feeling every day for 50 plus years. It's about showing up, and it's about trust, and it's about something deeper beyond what you can get out of it. It's about what you can give.
I know my grandma was married to my grandfather for 60 years, and she told me it was falling in love all the time. My grandfather was a character. He liked to keep her on her toes, and she said he kept it interesting. Like he didn't just get the girl and then that was it. I got the girl, I'm done. He kept it interesting. Like he would surprise her with certain things, or he'd get things just to get on her nerves, and then they would make up. And he said he just kept it interesting. And my grandma said that for my grandpa, how she kept him was just keep his belly full, like just make sure he ate good.
Men are simple. I won't argue with that.
Just give me a good dish, right? So, Zachary, what message would you like the young readers out there that are reading fantasy to get in today's world?
I want kids to dig deeper. I want young readers to dig deep into stories and to sit with them longer than it takes to read them, because I think you get a lot more out of it. Since we're on tea time, you let tea steep. You can't just drink it as soon as you put the tea bag in. You have to let the flavor infuse. And I think that it's sort of the same with reading. You have to sit with ideas and characters.
Yeah, and pick up a good novel and, go out and grab Zachary's novels and give us some feedback on those books, because I'd always love to see my listeners that listen to Tea Time, if they actually steep their tea, and get into the books and enjoy the books and get some feedback. We get feedback during the live shows, but I'd like to get some feedback after the shows. Like, did you go out and grab the book? Did you enjoy the book? Did you not enjoy it? What feedback would you like to give? So for all the listeners out there, go out and grab some of Zachary's books and check them out. Zachary, I got a quick few lightning bolt questions here for you. Dragon or Magical Kingdom, what do you prefer?
I would say Magical Kingdom if I had to choose. I think that there's a lot that you can do with that, and dragons had a real moment, and they're still fun and popular, but they've been done a lot.
Yeah, there's so many different ways of making magical kingdoms, right? Oops. Dragons are getting extinct.
They won't be in my next series, but they were fun to write.
Favorite writing snack?
Oh gosh, I don't eat while I'm writing.
Oh,
It's too
interesting.
distracting.
That makes sense, right? Because your fingers are busy.
Hmm.
So you can't get the pen to the paper. Morning writer or night writer, Zachary?
Oh, I am such a night owl. I've tried to get up and write, and I end up rewriting swaths of those sections because I'm just not awake enough for it. Um, Night all the way. For a while, I was part of a late night writers club, and we did writing sprints until like 11 midnight, and it was always some of my best writing.
One fictional world you'd visit forever.
I don't know. It's like Sophie's choice. Don't know.
That's a hard one.
I feel like I'd be hurting the other book's feelings if I picked one over the other. You know what? I'll go ahead and just say the world in which Aisha's secret is based, because I haven't explored all of the corners of that world yet. So there's got to be lots there to unpack and have fun with, because of course my next book will be loosely connected. It'll have one or two characters in common, but be set in a completely different country and with a different plot and different characters. So I'll go with her world. I don't even have a name for it.
So you don't hurt the other babies. What makes a story unforgettable, Zachary?
I think stories that are unforgettable resonate deeply and tell a truth deeper than can be expressed in a sentence or two. You need a whole book to tell it.
And do you feel like your stories are unforgettable?
I think for the right audience, for the right people, they are. The great thing about books is that there are so many of them that you can find exactly what you're looking for out there. And I know that I've had readers that I know that my stories are unforgettable for, and I had one review say that it wasn't as good as The Hunger Games, and I thought, well, it's not a dystopian novel, so it's not your genre, and that's okay.
You're in the wrong genre, guy. So, Zachary, your final message for all the listeners tonight, and if you could just spell out your website for people to check you out.
Sure, it's ZacharyHagenWrites.com. That's ZacharyHagenWrites.com. Wow, I didn't realize it was so long to spell it out, but it's so easy to say.
Spell it out 5 times, and then you'll be like, oh my goodness.
Right. And my final thought, I guess, would just be keep reading and keep learning and be open to learning new things, and don't be stuck in your perspective unless you are absolutely sure it's the right one, and then you better be ready to defend it.
Well, thank you so much.
Challenge you.
Right? Well, thank you, Zachary. I really enjoyed our time together again. This is our 5th time together, and hopefully I'll get to interview you when you're in California, and we'll see how all those books are, and that'll be your final move, and you can tell us a little bit about becoming a principal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I want to thank all the listeners and that who have joined us tonight. We will be back on Thursday and on Friday. Miss Liz has 4 shows this week left to do. And then we'll be back again on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. And then we'll start July all over. Pay attention. The press release will be coming out soon for the July lineup. And we have some amazing surprises on that lineup as well. And we're just going to do a recap of what tonight's tea time was. So, what a wonderful conversation it has been today. And Zachary, thank you for joining us once again for your fifth tea time appearance and for sharing the heart behind Anisha's secret. Your passion for storytelling continues to remind us that fantasy is not simply about magic and adventure. It is about exploring the choices, fears, dreams, and truth that makes us human. Tonight, we explored identity, courage, transformation, and the powerful ways stories help us understand ourselves and the world around us. One of the strongest takeaways from tonight's conversation is this: sometimes the mask we wear to survive can prevent us from seeing who we truly are. Through Anisha's journey, readers are invited to explore questions of belonging, honesty, self discovery, and the courage it takes to embrace one authentic self. The story's unique perspective offers a fresh reminder that true transformation comes not from changing who we are, but for accepting who we have always been. As we close tonight's tea time, I leave everyone with this thought: what truths about yourself might be waiting to emerge if you stopped hiding behind the expectations of others? Because every great story begins with a choice, and every meaningful journey begins with the courage to take the first steps. Thank you, Zachary, for continuing to share your imagination, your creativity, and your heart with the Tea Time community. Until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep serving real life tea, one conversation at a time. And tonight's takeaway is the greatest transformation doesn't happen when we become someone else. It happens when we discover the courage to become ourselves. I'll see everybody on Thursday, and we'll do this all over again. Until then, have a good night, guys.